Alright, so I'm here at the Lakeview recreation area, or Lakeview campground, here in the Sabine National Forest. I'm going to try and set an FKT on the trail between the lakes tomorrow. Just got done setting up a couple caches, and now I'm here at camp. Got myself some HEB pizza. Hits the spot. Got a nice view of the lake over here for the night. It's gonna be, well, it's still in the 90s right now, so probably in the 70s at the lowest tonight. So nice to get a good breeze coming off the lake with the hammock. Yeah, so far so good. Alright, so it's 5 a.m. Just got up, showtime. I don't know if it will really show up, but this is one of the coolest moons I've ever seen. Yeah, it's not really showing up, but that's actually an orange moon. I feel like that would have been a large armadillo. Really hoping that this is actually part of the trail right here. This is where it seems to lead. Alright, are there any blazes? Ah, there we go. Okay, so this is around mile 4. It is pretty overgrown right here. Just trying to keep a lookout for those blazes. There's a nice little lake here in the middle of the forest. Wasn't really expecting that. Guess I didn't look at the map close enough. There's even a little campground here by the lake. An established perimeter and some nice little wooden chairs. There's some wide open area way out here in the country. Got some nice wildflowers. Nice tall grass. Hopefully in the wintertime it's not so long. Alright, so just got to my first cache. It's about 2 hours, 45 minutes in, 8:15 in the morning, and we've gone about 11 and a half miles, give or take, well, 11.3. A little bit of bushwhacking in that first part, and hillier than I expected it to be, so we'll see. I don't really expect the trail to get any more well maintained from here on out, so yeah, gonna be definitely checking for ticks pretty often. Probably the coolest spot on the trail so far. It's a pretty deep little gully or ravine here. Might actually have running water if there's a big rain. I mean, I guess there's more than one way to blaze a tree. So one thing you definitely want to be careful of when you're running is not to step on little guys like this. He's pretty thick too, but I'll go ahead and leave him be. So that goes right in the middle of the trail. It's gonna be fun for the volunteers to get that out. This is definitely my least favorite part of the trail so far. This is about a little after mile 15, and yeah, you never know what's just lurking in these grasses. So they have these mile markers every now and then, and they're really not accurate. Like my mile marker on my GPS watch says mile 15.275 or 0.27, so about 15 and a quarter. And every one of them has been like that since the beginning. They're just a little bit of an overestimate. And there's only about like 4 or 5 that I've seen so far, so it's not like you would be able to depend on them for counting your mileage anyway. But just as an FYI. Man, it's amazing how like music can just lift your spirits so much. You know, I mean, not that I'm in a bad mood right now. Haven't even really hit the hard part of the trail. But you know, like I was just listening to a song called Portugal by Walk the Moon, and it's one of my favorite songs by them, and probably one of my favorite songs overall. And there's this part where the drum, there's like a little drum solo that's super fast and like super bassy all of a sudden. And like anytime I'm on a run and I hear that, it's just an instant adrenaline boost. So I'm sure most of you can relate. We all got our favorite songs and whatnot. There's something oddly beautiful about how straight and orderly all these trees are in the national forest. Alright, so I'm here at the western terminus of the trail between the lakes. Finished in 6 hours and 20 minutes. So pretty happy with that. I don't remember what the current fastest known time is off the top of my head, but it's got to be around that. And yeah, pretty happy with that time overall. I'd love to be even close to that on the way back, but I'm sure I won't. Just with being tired and with it getting hotter by the minute out here. Not sure if you can really tell, but I'm pretty drenched. Luckily I have a change of clothes here, and I'm gonna get some fluids and fuel in me, and I'll be back on my way. So yeah, it's not quite noon here. Hoping to be back by 7 p.m. Finish time. Pedialyte. You know why they call it that? That's right. Performance enhancing drug. This crossing did not feel good at this stage in the game. Got about 22 miles left in my eastbound hike, and I'm mostly going to be walking a lot of the rest of the way. Towards the end of the westbound through, I started feeling like kind of nauseous. It's not great overall. And I was hoping that getting some fluids and everything, some energy in me when I got to that cache would make me feel better. And like, I mean, it kind of worked, but I'll probably be taking it easy for the most part. As much as I am a glutton for punishment, not really trying to get heat exhaustion out here in the middle of nowhere, Texas. The last I checked, the high today was, I think, 93, which really isn't terrible for the middle of June down here in East Texas, but I'm sure with the heat index it's going to be probably over 100. I mean, it's pretty much sweating bullets from the time I started this morning. There's at least a little bit of a mental relief from making it halfway, because now it's like every mile I do, I'm that much closer to being done instead of moving further away from camp. Even though I'm tired and sore and hot, there is one huge benefit right now to going eastbound over this morning's westbound hike. And that is, I've already walked through all the spider webs. This stuff kind of looks like bamboo. I don't know if anybody here is an expert on the fauna, or flora rather, Texas. I didn't know that there was bamboo here, if that's what this is. Alright, so I'm back at home now, and since I don't have any footage from the last 20 or so miles of the run, there's just like to say that I did finish it. I have the Garmin GPX track that I can share if anybody's curious. And so how did the last little bit of the run go? Well, so I got to the halfway point just before noon, and then I took a little bit of a break because it was really starting to heat up, and by that time I felt like I was starting to get a little bit lightheaded because of just how hot it was. I was drinking a lot of fluid, but it just seemed like no matter how fast I was replenishing fluid, it was just like getting depleted quicker than I could replenish it. So I took about maybe like a 20-25 minute break before I started headed back. So it was just a little bit after noon when I started making my way back to the start of the trail. And I decided to take it easy by just kind of starting off walking back to, kind of continue with the rest and really get back into running shape. And it just really never got easier in terms of how I felt. I mean, physically, I was fine as far as I had energy, and my legs felt fine. And so, every now and then I would start running a little bit, and while I was running, I kind of had that momentum, and I felt like I could be fine. But then like the heat would like make me feel really sick all of a sudden, and so I'd stop and I'd walk a little bit, and then that would kind of just continue in a cycle. I'd run for a little bit, walk for a little bit. Even at the end, I felt like I had plenty of juice left in the legs to run, but it was just really oppressively hot. But in the end, I did finish, so I will chalk that up as a win. Overall, it took me 15 hours, 17 minutes, and 35 seconds. I took a little bit of a wrong turn on the way back, so it ended up being 55.31 miles. So new personal best as far as mileage. And that works out to an average mile pace of 16 minutes and 35 seconds per mile. So not the fastest for sure. Some people could probably fast walk at a 16-minute mile, but at the same time, that's also including the break that I took halfway through. And, this is my first real ultramarathon. So just to finish it all, I'm satisfied with that. And it was about 8:45 at night by the time I finished, so it was starting to get dark. I did have my headlamp with me just in case, but still I wasn't trying to be out there all night, so it was kind of a constant battle on the way back of trying to get back as soon as possible, but not trying to push myself so hard that I would get heat exhaustion and pass out in the middle of the woods. So as far as the bug pressure, I think that it was a little better on the way back because by that time it was so hot in the middle of the day that even the bugs were a little bit less active than they were in the morning. So I didn't have as many flies following me, but because I was going slower, mostly walking a lot of the way back, I did end up finding a lot more ticks on me. On the way, on the first half of the run, I only found 2 ticks on me, one of which was on my shorts, so no big deal, just flick it off, and then the other one was on my neck, which, yeah, screw that. But on the way back, I probably found maybe 10 or so, maybe a dozen. So I was pretty much constantly, anytime I would get out of an area that was super grassy, I would stop and check myself. So that also slowed me down.
Overall, I was pretty happy with my fuel intake and everything. I ended up consuming around 200 ounces of fluid, which was a little bit of water, mostly Tailwind Nutrition and Pedialyte. Um, as far as like actual calorie intake, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 or 3,000 calories, which I mean, you can only consume about 200, or you can only really burn. No, what's the really your body can only use 200 calories an hour anyway. So I'm sure that uh, wouldn't have been that much better off by consuming more. Although I did end up burning 8,228 calories. So yeah, yikes. That's over 2 pounds of fat in terms of the calories. And uh, my overall body weight change when I got back from the run. When I got back home, I weighed myself. And mind you, this is after I had already chugged a bunch of water once I got done. But I had lost 12.6 pounds. So yeah, that's pretty significant, pretty drastic, especially for somebody that's not a huge person. I mean, we're talking like I weighed 170.6 going into this, and then to come back and weigh 158 pounds, that's like, you know, a significant portion of my body weight. So as you can imagine, I was pretty wiped out. Like the next day, I mean, I was mostly just like sitting around and eating. I felt fine. Like my legs weren't like ridiculously sore. Actually, when I did the training run for this, the long run that was 32 miles, I think I was more sore the next day than this time. So I'm not sure if that was due to better nutrition intake or whatnot, but my legs weren't all that sore. And then overall, I was definitely, just like not very energetic, but I felt fine the next day. Um, all things considered, I definitely thought I would be a lot more wiped out for losing over 12 pounds in a day. That being said, I was prepared for the heat in terms of I did a significant amount of my long training runs in the heat, and I'm used to running here in Texas where it's extremely hot, extremely humid. So the heat was a known factor. For anybody else looking to attempt this, I certainly would not advise them to do it during the summer, as I did. As much as I appreciate a challenge, I think that it is a little bit dangerous. Um, if I had really decided to push myself on the way back instead of walking whenever I felt kind of sick, I think like there was a high chance of getting heat stroke or heat exhaustion. So definitely, if you're gonna attempt this trail or any trail in Texas, the winter is the much better option if you can work it into your schedule, know your limits, and yeah, I do hope that somebody will at least attempt another out and back route, because it was a fun trail overall. I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of elevation change, which ended up being 3,793 feet of elevation gain, which for a lot of people is not going to sound like a lot. You can easily do that, in an afternoon, on a casual afternoon in Colorado. But here in East Texas, there's not a whole lot of elevation change. So for me, that made it a little bit more fun, a little bit more of a challenge, of course, but it keeps things interesting when you've got to go over lots of tiny creeks and whatnot. Saw a little bit of wildlife, some white-tailed deer, saw an armadillo, which I was really excited about. Of course, I saw the snake that I got on video, and then just like your typical squirrels and birds and whatnot. Um, Overall, it is pretty similar to the Lone Star hiking trail over in Sam Houston. Um, I feel like pound for pound or mile for mile, the trail between the lakes may be a little bit more interesting. It was a little bit overgrown in parts, but not as bad as I was expecting from everything that I read. I mean, even the Lone Star Trail is probably a lot more well traveled, but it still gets plenty overgrown in parts. And to me, being that it's the summertime, like, you know, there's only so much you can do as far as trail maintenance. You know, the plants are just going to spring up so quickly. So I think the trail was not that bad, especially in the wintertime. It should be pretty easy to follow. There were plenty of blazes. I did get lost just a couple times, but you know, you're never really that far from a road either if push came to shove. So I know this is a little bit more of an out of the way trail. It's not really close to any population centers, but if you can make the trip out there, I think it is worth it as far as the trails that we have in this neck of the woods. So I look forward to future attempts for people setting FKTs, and yeah, thank you for watching.